You know what time it is? Let's talk about Assassin's Creed. So Assassin's Creed has been my favorite game series since I'm very young. It is actually the games that really got me into gaming. I remember being like, I think 6 or 7 or 8 years old, just watching my siblings or my older cousins play Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and all of those games, on the Xbox 360 when I was very young. And I wanted to play that. So since then, every new game that's been released, I've gotten it. From the old ones, Rogue, to AC Valhalla, and Mirage. I have all of them. And throughout the years, the game has changed. The whole style of the game went from a more linear narrative story to a more RPG style story. And I think that's okay. I think they did fantastic with Origins. And although I had my fair share of criticism against Odyssey and Valhalla, all in all, they are good games. They are not bad games. Maybe bad Assassin's Creed at time, but good games overall. So with Ubisoft public image being at the lowest they have ever been, it's no surprise that with their upcoming game AC Shadows, a lot of headlines have been made, and not good ones. And I've been looking through them, and the critics always seem to be around the same themes. They have a lot to say, but in particular, the main criticism that I've seen about this game were that Yasuke was not a samurai. Like the fictional interpretation of Yasuke was not accurate. That the graphics and just visual effects of the game in general looked outdated. The microtransactions that are most likely going to be very present, historical inaccuracies. That the open world seems so empty, and that Assassin's Creed in general is just dead. But I have my own counter arguments for that, because from what I've seen of this game, which is not a lot, I'm optimistic. So let's start with the beginning. The main objection that a lot of people had, that I've seen everyone on Twitter, Facebook, even on YouTube videos, the major Yasuke problem. That Yasuke was not a samurai, that we're not even sure he existed, and I've seen a lot of people debate about Yasuke online, and not always accurately, because Yasuke is most likely a real historical figure, and maybe he wasn't a real samurai, which is still a dodgy question because there's still a lot of archives and records of him fighting at the Battle of Tenmokuzan, literally under direct command of the Lord Oda Nobunaga, which would kind of put him in a high position socially in hierarchy in the military. So even though he maybe wasn't a samurai officially, he was definitely up in the ranks of the military and was definitely treated as some kind of nobility, because there's even a statue of him in Osaka, and to this day we see him as the first foreign samurai. So yeah, maybe he was just somewhat of a squire, or the equivalent of a squire for a samurai, but that's still pretty close to the damn title. So he was definitely up there, and he wasn't just a random soldier as like some people on Twitter try to make it seem. And my issue is, what if he was? Assassin's Creed never claimed to be 100% historically accurate, and a lot of media has already portrayed Yasuke as a samurai. Netflix, for example, in their TV show, I haven't watched it yet, but I heard it's pretty good. Like, Netflix did a TV show called Yasuke. There's even, like I said, the statue of Yasuke in Japan, in Osaka. And there's no outrage, there's nothing. So I definitely think it's more of a case of Ubisoft being disliked by so many than a case of really Yasuke being a problem as a playable character. Because Yasuke has been at the center of many Japanese stories, many Japanese themed stories, like I said, the TV show, and it never was a problem. And I don't understand why the players don't understand why they chose Yasuke as a playable character. It makes so much sense to me. The whole point of his character in AC Shadows is to bring a perspective of Japan in the eyes of a newcomer, a foreigner. The shinobi that we will play, her name is Naoe, she is Japanese. Her father is Japanese, she's been trained in Japan, she's been going on missions, she's already like a trained shinobi when we meet her. So she's used to it, but for us players, playing and living through Yasuke is going to be the perfect way to experience feudal Japan culture for the first time. Experiencing the customs, experiencing how the different citizens interact with a newcomer, just as he is. And that's the whole reason they chose him as a character, to make us experience Japan in the eyes of a newcomer, feudal Japan in the eyes of a newcomer, to experience Japan in a way that we don't know which lord is that, and what lord is this, and which part of the country they control, and we don't know nothing about the whole place. and we would learn as Yasuke learns without it feeling corny. You know, in those movies where they just state obvious information just for us, or a game where they just state an obvious information and you know that they kind of just said it for us players or viewers because it's so obvious for them, it should be obvious for them. I don't want it to feel that way. So through Yasuke, we could actually learn a lot of obvious things that we might not know. Now for the second point, graphics. It might be actually true, because Valhalla looked fluid and good, Mirage did so too, but it lacked motion capture, a lot of motion capture. It lacked cutscenes. It just felt like the animation was rushed. Like they didn't want to take the time to properly polish the game visually, or not visually, because the landscape is beautiful, but the animations and the graphics, and when you light something on fire in Valhalla, it looks very 2012-ish. Like it's just a bunch of pixels, and like indie games do better than that sometimes. So yeah, the effects, like the visual effects of Assassin's Creed has been very botched lately. And I don't think it's gonna change that much, because from what I know, they're still running the same engine. But who knows? AC Shadows at the end of the day is gonna be the first Assassin's Creed especially released for new gen, exclusively released for new gen. So maybe they're gonna have taken the time to properly work on these visual effects, and it might look better than we have ever seen. Don't forget the game is still in progress, as it is stated in the footage. So yeah, visual effects were subpar, and facial animations when they speak and when they have conversation, it looked a bit subpar, it looked a bit outdated. But this is made by Ubisoft Quebec, and to be honest, their games have been some of the best visuals in all of the series. If there's one studio I would trust with the graphics and aesthetic in general, it would be them. Just look at Odyssey, just look at AC Syndicate, beautiful cutscenes and art direction. The game is very, very polished, even though they have their own issues. Visually, there's nothing to be said about Ubisoft Quebec's game. They also make very, very interactive worlds. Just look at the open world in Odyssey. It's probably the best in the entire series. Or the open world in Syndicate. Like I said, some of the side missions were actually crazy. The was it Charles Dickens story where you have to hunt ghosts, or ghost stories in London and stuff? It was amazing. The side quests, the world design, how you interact with the world feels very alive. And from what I've seen, it's going to be the same in Shadows. The parkour is dynamic, but fans seems to find a way to complain because Naoe does too many backflips, completely ignoring all the new features the dev brought us. Breeding and assassinating people underwater, stick to the walls like Spider-Man, grapple hook, go prone, kidnapping. Like there's so many new features, but fans still want to complain about the parkour, saying the game is dead and the animations are outdated and the game doesn't look that good. On a game that's not even finished, on a game that's still 5 months away from being released. I think it's going to be released in end of February, so we still have December. Like, yeah, we have 3 months, not 5. But still, you get the point. Next up, for the historical inaccuracies. I don't really know what to say. It happens. A game as ambitious as Assassin's Creed, where you need to recreate a whole culture from a past era, is doomed to have some errors in it. It might not be excusable, but it will happen for sure. Even a game as perfected and polished as Red Dead Redemption 2 had anachronism, either in the language they use, or some of the guns, or things just laying around in the shops. It's doomed to happen. And the game isn't even out yet, so as we get to the finishing touches, the devs will definitely have more time to look into it. And even if they miss a couple, it won't ruin the narrative, it won't ruin the gameplay, and it won't ruin my experience of a whole game because of a few items or banners here and there that aren't like historically accurate. So for people saying AC is dead, I have one thing to say. Go back and play the old ones. Just go back and play them. Try them again. And when I say old ones, I mean AC2, Revelations, maybe even AC3. I don't mean Syndicate and Unity. Because, yeah, that's what the people use as the gold standard of Assassin's Creed, but go back and play them. And tell me it didn't need a reboot. Look, I love these games to death. I have all of them, like I said. Those are the games that got me into gaming. But I tried playing AC2 again recently, and it's just not as fun. Gameplay-wise, it's just not as fun, and that's okay. That's normal, even. The game got old. It's not even about the story. The story is still as good as it ever was. I would happily watch a movie or read a book about Ezio's story and his journey, or Connor Kenway and all of those guys. I would happily experience their stories again, but just not playing them again. The gameplay got old, So when they came out with Origins and stepped up the whole level of the open world and RPG aspect, it made it very interesting again. My issue with Odyssey and Valhalla was the complete absence of the main plot in it, the narrative between the Templars and Assassins, but they heard it and they did bring it back for Mirage, and now bringing it back for Shadows. So yeah, the game might not be perfect. I enjoyed Valhalla as a game, but it had so many issues I couldn't even count them if I tried. So Shadows definitely will have some too, but for a game as ambitious as Shadows to be received with so much backlash for so minor details feels crazy to me. From what I've seen, I remain confident, and make no mistake, I will be playing day one, for sure. I am waiting for this game, I am optimistic about this game, and yeah, I don't care about the mistakes that much. If it ends up being a trash game, I'm gonna be the first one to say it. But from what I've seen and from what I've gotten to know from the past games, it cannot be that bad. I think they learned from their mistake with Odyssey, just taking out the whole assassin narrative out of it. People didn't really like that, and I think they learned from Valhalla. Just the story of Valhalla was atrocious, don't get me wrong. Having 10 hours of actual relevant story for 40 hours of fillers was an absolute insanity. But I think they learned from that, because in Mirage, it was straight to the point. It was very entertaining, even though it was a smaller game. So if they can combine all of those things together, put it in one game, learn from all their mistakes, and put it in a game directed by the best visual effects and art direction studios in all of Ubisoft Quebec, I think we're in it for something good. I really do. But you guys let me know what you think. I gotta go. Peace.